I want to welcome all the people that are coming in for the 9 o'clock, the 10 o'clock hour. This is going to be a very special hour that we have because Rabbi Alterman, this is special for a whole bunch of reasons. We have a really, really, really special hour coming up. So number one, some thank yous. I'm going to run through the thank yous before we get started. Every hour, at the beginning and the end of the hour, we're offering a lot of thank yous. Want to offer a thank you to Avram Chazanov, who's at raisegiving.com. You came in, you went to ariel.raisegiving.com. So if you did that, the Raise Giving site is brought to us by the Raise Giving people, and that's Avram Chazanov. The technical expertise that's making all of this happen is brought to us by a fellow named Josh Needle, who's at broadspectrumservicesllc.com. And we thank Josh for being there. And Josh taught me a lot. So I've learned a lot of things about how to run this, but I'm only on the front end, and there's something called the back end, and I don't see the back end, but people like with computers like his, they see the back end of what's going on, and they make all this happen. So the people on the back end, thank you. That's Josh. Now, the what we have is, this is a special hour. So first of all, Rabbi Alterman is a 7th grade Rebbe at Torah Day School. And Rabbi Alterman teaches his class. Ever since COVID has broken out, he does not stop teaching, and he has been teaching his class, and they meet regularly. And what I've asked is, I've asked him and them to join us this morning. So we get to see them teaching. We get to see them learning, and Rabbi Alterman teaching. And that's a real special angle. It's something different than as many of the other classes we've seen. We get to see a 7th grade Rebbe in action with the students, which is a special sight for many of us. I don't know, it's been a long time since I was in 7th grade. The only thing I can say about the last time I was in 7th grade, you have all the 7th grade teachers and their moms are all here to make sure that they can get some nachas from their son. Okay, so I haven't seen a 7th grade teacher, 7th grade Rebbe in action since I was in 7th grade. And all I know is that the last time I was in 7th grade, that the Rebbe called on me to read. And I read the Gemara, and the Gemara said, Heichi dummy. And I translated that as, who is a dummy? Friedman, out of here. Okay, that was the end of that class. So I hope it goes a little bit better for Rabbi Alterman and his students, and they're not such big dummies as I was when I was in 7th grade. So anyway, that's one reason why this is very, very special. There is another reason why this is very, very special, and that is because Rabbi Alterman and Congregation Ariel go way, 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 way back. Like way back, like about as far as Congregation Ariel goes back, then that's how far Rabbi Alterman goes back, he and his family. So it's not just the fact that we have a 7th grade Rebbe doing his class, which would be really neat under any circumstances, but it's Rabbi Michoel Alterman doing this class and doing it on this Congregation Ariel 48-hour Torathon, which makes it all that much more special. So, you know, we got rabbis coming in from all around the community, and we had a couple of guys. Last night, we had Harold Schroeder teach a class. He's a Ariel raised product, and we're going to tonight have David Weissman's teaching a class, which is also a Ariel product, and we're going to lay claim to Rabbi Michoel Alterman as also being an Ariel product. And so we're really like doubly special this morning. So 2 things I'm going to do. First off, for Rabbi Alterman, I'm going to start off by making him a co-host. Okay, now he's a co-host, and Rabbi Alterman now can do a share screen if he wants, and he can manage the participants. So I am going to ask you, Rabbi Alterman, if you could, if you click on, you'll see where it says participants on the bottom. It says 21 of them right now. And if you click that on, then in your side box, you'll see in case someone shows up, like Shali. See how Shali just showed up?
Yes, we'll let him in.
And you got to let him in.
Okay.
Right. So keep your eyes on that box and let in people as they come in, because I might be walking in and out and might miss someone. So you want to be sure to let them in. And therefore, going to thank Rabbi Alterman for doing this. Going to ask everyone, if you're on the way in or on the way out, if you stop off and click the donate button, that would be a really, really nice thing, because Kangariel could really use the help right now. We're doing this whole 48-hour thing in lieu of an annual banquet. And you know, the problem with the banquets is people spend a lot of money and they get a dinner and you have to do all the decorations and all that. And a lot of your money doesn't go to tzedakah. It goes to the event. But in this case, this is a real low overhead fundraiser, because Rabbi Alterman has donated his time and all the other rabbis have donated their time. So the tzedakah dollar, at least 95 cents of the tzedakah dollar is going to tzedakah, maybe even more. So therefore, if anyone would like to help support this endeavor, sponsor Rabbi Alterman for doing this. And by the way, Rabbi Alterman does have sponsors, and I want to read them. Hold on just a second. So first of all, I want to say that we are over at this point. My latest figure tally is that we're over 25,000, which is fantastic. And I want to read to you some sponsors that we just got. Let me see when our latest hang on. Well, I guess my latest I guess my latest one is not so late, but oh, here we go. Let's get the most current list. Although it's from last night, but let's get the most current list. So I just have to read these sponsors, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Alterman. He can take it away. Let's see. Oh, hang on. There we go. The Karshes, David and Miriam Karsh, has sponsored this hour with Rabbi Alterman. So thank you to the Karshes for sponsoring this hour. And without further ado, when Rabbi Alterman takes over the screen, he is on. And there you go.
Okay, thank you very much, Rabbi Friedman. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here. Thank you to the Karshes for sponsoring. And thank you to all of the Chashavah 7th graders for coming on to join. And a special welcome to my mother, who's here from Baltimore. How often does she get to have a little bit of nachas? Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Okay, I hope that our learning today will be a big treat to you for you. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, so I hope you enjoy. We're coming up on Shavuos, and on Shavuos, we learn on the second day of Shavuos, we learn the book of Rus. And there are a lot of reasons given for why we learn the book of Rus on Shavuos. I hope by the time we finish today, you'll have one more reason to add to the list of why we read Shavuos, why we read Rus on Shavuos. What I'd like to share with you is a Brisker Rav. Who is the Brisker Rav? The Brisker Rav passed away, I believe, in 1953 or 1954 in Eretz Yisrael. And he is renowned, comes from this famous Soloveitchik family, and he is renowned for his incisive analysis of the Gemara and of halacha, and his ability to explain the fine, nuanced differences. And the Brisker Rav has a very insightful idea about the Megillas Rus, which will enable us to step back and learn a whole lot of other different things along the way. So first, before we get to what the Brisker Rav says, just a general overview of Megillas Rus. What happens in Megillas Rus? So we know the story of Rus starts with Elimelech and Naomi traveling to Moab, and upon arrival there, Elimelech dies, and their two sons, Machlon and Kilion, marry princesses from Moab, Rus and Orpah. Soon after that, Machlon and Kilion die as well. So we're left with just Naomi and her two daughters-in-law, Rus and Orpah. Naomi decides she wants to return back to Eretz Yisrael, and Rus famously joins her. Orpah stays behind, and not such good things come out of Orpah in the end. But from Rus, great things come. And Rus returns to Eretz Yisrael, and the rest of the Megillah is about Rus's interactions with a man named Boaz. Boaz was the Gadol Hador, and he was one of the Shoftim. And in the end, Rus ends up marrying Boaz, and they end up having a son, Obad, who has a son, Yishai, who has a son, David HaMelech, and Mashiach comes from that union between Rus and Boaz. So that's the story. And Boaz and Rus are engaged in something called a form of Yibum. And okay, I'd like to share with you my screen and go through with you a passage from Perek Dalet. Megillas Rus has 4 prakim. Megillas Rus has 4 prakim, and in the 4th perek, we have the following story. I'm just going to read and translate relatively quickly to get to the main point where we'd like to end up. Yeah. So, the beginning of Perek Dalet, Rus has already shown her interest in marrying Boaz, and Boaz says, "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it." However, Boaz says, "I'm not really the first in line. There's another fellow whose name is Ploni Almoni who has the first right." So the pasuk says, "Boaz Allah Hashar Vayeshev Sham." Boaz went up to the gate, the entrance of the city, and he sat down there. V'hinei hagoel over asher diber Boaz. The Redeemer that Boaz spoke about passed by. This Redeemer has 3 names. He's referred to, number 1, as the Goel. Number 2, he's referred to as Ploni Almoni. Ploni Almoni. Ploni Almoni is the ultimate loser name in history. It's the Hebrew version of John Doe. If you ever look at credit card advertisements, they'll show you the random credit card numbers, and the name that's written on there is John Doe. John Doe means a nobody. In Torah, the word we have for random nobody person is Ploni Almoni, taken right from over here, because we're going to see he demonstrates himself to be the ultimate loser in Jewish history. Top of the list, biggest loser all time is Ploni Almoni. So Boaz says, and the third name he has is he's also called Tov. Vayomer, and he said, Surah Shva Po Ploni Almoni. So Boaz invited this fellow Ploni Almoni to come be seated. That's Boaz's first cousin was Ploni Almoni. Vayasar Vayeshev, and he sat down there. Vayikach asara anashim miziknei ha'ir, and Boaz gathered together 10 people from the city. Vayomer shvufo, and he said to them, sit here. Vayeshevu, and they're all there together. Pasuk Gimel. Vayomer la goel. So Boaz said to the Redeemer, to this fellow, he says, "Chelkas hasadeh shelachinu leElimelech Michra Nami Ashava Misteyut Moav. We have this field that used to belong to Nami, and we need to buy that. We need to buy back that field. And Boaz says, I want to give you the first right to buy back the field. So just skipping to the end of Pasuk Daled, the Ploni Almoni agrees, and he says, Vayomer Anochi Egal. Fine, I will redeem the field. However, Boaz says the field does not come by itself. Pasuk Hey. Vayomer Boaz says, Biyom Kenoscha Sadeh Miyad Nami. On the day that you acquire this field from Nami, Umeis Rusa Moavia, Eshes Ames Kanisa, Hakim Shema Mes Al Nachalaso. On the day that you acquire the field, you get a 2 for the price of 1. You get the field and you get the girl also. Because if you redeem the field, you also get Rus HaMoavia as together with the field. If you want the field, you got to marry Rus as well, fulfilling a mitzvah of Yibum. And it's beyond the scope of our discussion for today why the two things are linked together. That's code word for I don't know why they're linked together. I once heard a shir from Rabbi Pransky. He explained very well why they were linked together, but I heard the shir on Shabbos and didn't write it down and don't remember all the details of that, but they are linked. So Boaz says you got to marry Rus also. And here the Goel responds. Vayomer HaGoel, the Redeemer says, Lo uchal ligal li. I am not able to redeem the field, to redeem. I can't do it. Why can't I do it? Pen ashchis es nachalosi, lest I will destroy my inheritance. We'll see what that means in a minute. Ga'al lecha ata es geulasi. You do it. You redeem for me the redeeming. Hilo uchal ligal, because I am not able to do it. Okay, so Ploni Almoni refuses. He says, I can't do it. Pen ashchis is nachalasi. Can't do it. I'll destroy my inheritance. And as a result of that, he steps aside. Boaz steps forward. Boaz redeems the field. Boaz marries Rus. And the rest is history. And we are still waiting for the end of the story to come with the coming of Mashiach. Rashi says a surprising thing here. Rashi says on the words, Pen ashchis es nachalasi. I can't redeem because lest I will destroy my inheritance. What does that mean? I will destroy my inheritance. Says Rashi, Hainu zari. This means my children. Boaz says, if I redeem the field and I marry Rus, I will ruin my children. How will I ruin my children? Loses pigam bizari. I will be putting a defect, a pagam, a lacking in my children. How is that? Shneimar, because the pasuk says in the Torah, it says lo yavo Amoni uMoavi. Says that a person from Ammon and a person from Moab are not allowed to marry into the Jewish people. Rus comes from Moab, so he's saying I can't marry her because I'm going to ruin my children. V'ta, he made a mistake because there's a drasha, which we're going to discuss later on, be'amoni v'lo amonis. The Gemara has a drasha that says when the Torah says that someone from Moab and Ammon can't marry into the Jewish people, it just means a man from Ammon and Moab, Ammoni, male, Moavi, male, but not Ammonis or Moavis, not female. So says Rashi, this person, the Goel, made a mistake. He didn't know the halacha. He didn't know how to interpret the pasuk correctly. That's what Rashi says. You read this Rashi and you're like astounded. There's so many questions on this Rashi. Let's just speak out a few of them. Number one, if he's making a mistake about this drasha, then you know what Boaz should have done? Boaz should have simply taught him the halacha. My friend, you're making a mistake, right? Imagine Imagine you have a geschmacke hamburger. You have a delicious hamburger. You invite your friend over and you offer him the hamburger. And your friend says, you know what? I can't eat that hamburger because it's not kosher. So what do you respond to him? My friend, it is kosher. You could eat it. It's not a problem, right? So of course he should be allowed to eat it. Why can't he simply respond that? Yaakov Simcha has a question. I'm not sure if I can unmute you or not. Do you need?
I unmuted myself.
Go for it. Yes, I can't see.
Wasn't Boaz already trying to go around telling people you can marry Moavi women?
Right.
Trying to justify himself.
Okay.
So maybe he did try to teach Plony.
Maybe. Okay, so you're saying maybe he did try to teach him. So then I guess we would adjust the question then, and we would say, why didn't he learn? A good teacher teaches and the student learns, right? How come he didn't learn? Accept it. Why didn't he accept it? So if I invite you over and I offer you a hamburger and you say it's not kosher, I say, no, it is kosher. You say, no, it's not. I say, yes, it is. That's a really silly conversation, right? Why are we arguing about this? Tzvi with a Z.
Maybe he didn't really even, maybe he didn't make a difference. Maybe it was just like excuses. The hamburger, really, I'm a vegan, but I don't want you to know. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good. So maybe Rashi, maybe what Rashi says is, Rashi says he made a mistake about that. You're saying that Rashi's quoting what he said, but that wasn't really what was motivating him. He had another motivation. Just didn't
I think it was just excuses.
Okay, didn't like her. Okay, well, that's possible. I'm not sure if that fits well into Rashi. Rashi says Vita, he made a mistake. Rashi,
no, because it wasn't so widely accepted.
Okay, it wasn't widely accepted. Okay, we're going to explore that idea in a moment. Okay, second problem. He says, I can't marry her because I'm going to ruin my children. If I was Boaz, I'd respond to him and say, Ploni Almoni, you have a bigger problem. Forget about your children. What about you? If you're telling me that she's from Moab and you can't marry her, then if you're telling her she's from Moab and you can't have her children will be messed up, you're not allowed to marry her either. Right? There's two things. There's two results. If you marry someone you're not supposed to marry, number two, it messes up your children. But number one, it's an isser. You're not allowed to marry her. So why does Ploni Almoni say to Boaz, I can't marry her. I'm going to ruin my children. You're going to ruin your children. You're going to ruin yourself. It's usher for you yourself to marry her. Yes, Yaakov Simcha.
Maybe going back to what Tzvi just said, he's like quick thinking up an excuse. And I don't know, he thought children before himself. I don't know.
Okay, it's possible. I'm not sure if Rashi would have said that though. Rashi would have, and what Rashi would have written was he was just being short-sighted and didn't think things through all the way. I think it's what he would have said.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the psukim, and this is what Rashi says. So I'd like to explore this. The Brisker Rav is coming to explain this Rashi. But before we get to that explanation, we need to go back even a little bit further and see a Gemara in Masechta Yevamos. This Gemara is in the 8th parak of Yevamos, appropriate place to discuss Yibum, although the Gemara is not going to come at it from that perspective. And the Gemara says, there was someone asked about class codes. I put the class codes on today's Gemara lesson. So you can see all the class codes on today's Gemara lesson instead of over here. Okay, so there's a Mishnah in the 8th parak of Yevamos that says like this: Amoni uMoavi asurim, and someone from Ammon and someone from Moab are forbidden. The isuran isur olam, and their prohibition is permanent. That means someone from Ammon and Moab, you can't marry them even many generations down the line. Aval nikvoseam mutaros miyad. But their females, nikevos from them, are permitted immediately. The Mishnah says that you're allowed to marry women from Moab. Okay, so the Gemara wants to figure out where that comes from. So skipping down to where it's yellow here, minani mili. From where do we know these words? Whenever the Gemara says Minani Mili, we're looking for a pasuk. Now, this is interesting. Normally, the pasuk that you quote is a pasuk in the Torah. Here, we're going to quote psukim from Sefer Shmuel Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yochanan to Amar Kra. Now, this is going to be a long answer over here. The Gemara is going to give a whole backstory that will explain this whole business. Says the Gemara, V'chirosh Shaul es David yotze likras ha-plishti. Okay, this is a pasuk from Shmuel Aleph. Remember back to Shmuel Aleph. Goliath, who happens to be a descendant of Arpa, Ruth's sister-in-law, Goliath is threatening Klal Yisrael. And he says, I'm giving 40 days for someone to come out to fight me, and everyone's afraid. Shaul HaMelech is the king, and everyone's afraid. No one wants to fight. So David sees that David comes, that happens to be at the camp at that time, and he sees Goliath. And then, so David goes out to fight against Goliath. And then Shaul sees him. V'chiros Shaul es David yotze likras ha-plishti. When Shaul sees David going out to greet the Plishti, Amar el Avner sar hatzava. So Shaul asks his general Avner a very strange question. He says, Ben mi zehanar Avner. Who's this guy the son of? Who is this guy the son of? Now, David already at this time was Shaul's harp player. Shaul knows David well, but he asks this weird question. Who's he the son of? Vayomer Avner. Avner responds, shockingly, Chei nafshecha hamelach im yadati. He says, I don't know. I swear I don't know. Okay, that's a weird question and a weird answer. He asks, who is it? And he says, I don't know. They both know David very well. What does it mean? So the Gemara asks, V'lo yoda le? They don't know him. The pasuk says, "Vayaveu me'od vayilo nosei kelim." This is a pasuk already before that Shaul loved David. He was his weapon carrier, and they know them already. So, what in the world is the Gemara asking when it says that? Says the Gemara, what were Shaul and Avner discussing? So says the Gemara, Ela avua kamasho. They're asking about who David's father is. They know David, they don't know his father. Says the Gemara, what you talking about? We know who his father is also. Aviv lo yadale. They don't know David's father, Yishai. The Aksiv, the pasuk says earlier, Va'ish bimei Shaul zakein baba anashim. Pasuk says there was a man that was an old man in those days, a great man. V'amarav v'temer Rab Ava ze Yishai avid David. Everybody knew David's father, Yishai. Shenichnas be'luchsa v'yatza be'luchsa. He was a famous person. He came with lots of people. We know Yishai was one of the four people in history who died with no averos. Yishai was a famous person. So what in the world is the Gemara saying? We don't know that they knew who David was, but they didn't know who Yishai was. So here comes the Gemara's answer. Hey Kuv stands for Hachi Kamar. This is what it's saying. Hachi Kamar Shaul. This is what Shaul was asking. Imi peretz asi, imi zerach asi. They wanted to know which family from Shevet Yehuda did David come from. Let's remember back in Parshas Vayeshev, Yehuda marries Tamar, and they have two sons, twins, Peretz and Zerach. Peretz and Zerach. There was a little struggle over there. Who was the firstborn? Peretz was the firstborn. We say in Lechadodi, Al Yad Ish ben Partzi, right, Tzvi? We even scream that sometimes on Friday nights when we're learning about it. Yeah. So Al Yad Ish ben Partzi. So they were asking, is David's family from the Peretz line of Yehuda or from the Zerach line of Yehuda? Imi Peretz Asi, this is what Shaul was saying. If he comes from Peretz, Malka Have. I see from this man, he's going to be a king. Shaul saw that within David's ability to go out to fight against Goliath, he must be worthy to become a king. But that's only if he comes from the Peretz side of Yehuda. Shamelech Poretz Lasos derech ve'ein memachim biyado. As we had in Akones, we have that expression. The king breaks through. He can do whatever he wants, from the word peretz. Okay. But imi zerach asi, if he comes from zerach, chashiva ba'al mahavi, he'll just be a regular important person. Okay, so David and Shaul and Avner just had a discussion, and they're talking about whether this guy David is fitting to become king in the future or not, and they don't really know. Okay, skipping a couple of lines over here. The Gemara continues. Amar le doe kadomi. Okay, doe kadomi. Yes, Yaakov Simcha, question.
In Shaul and Avner's conversation, are they saying, is this guy worthy to become king as in a good thing, or is this guy able to overthrow me?
No, as a good thing. I don't think at this time Shaul is threatened. There's no indication that he's
Not yet.
This time, not yet. No, he's just like, wow, this guy's like spectacular, unbelievable.
Nice.
Okay. But now this is where the trouble comes. Doeg Adomi is like the arch enemy of David and of Klal Yisrael, a big Talmid Chacham who was a terrible Rasha. You see from here that it's possible to be a big Talmid Chacham and a big Rasha at the same time. Amalei Doeg Adomi. So Doeg Adomi says to Shaul, before you ask whether David is proper to become a king one day, let's just ask if he's even proper to marry into the Jewish people. Is he even a legitimate Jew? My time. Oh, what's the reason? Doeg says he comes from Rus. So what are you talking about? King, no king. He's not even legitimate. Amarle Avner. Avner responded to him, Tanina. Avner said to Doeg, hello, didn't you learn the Mishnah? Right, the Mishnah was written later on. But don't you know the halacha? We have halacha, Ammoni v'lo Ammonis, Moavi v'lo Moavis. We have a drasha. Only the Ammonis are forbidden, the males, not the females. Only the Moavi males are forbidden, not the females. The Gemara continues with the back and forth between Avner and Shaul and Doeg Adomi. Skipping to the next page in Yevamos. So what happened was Doeg Adomi asked a bunch of strong questions, and his questions were so strong that they were prepared now to declare that David was illegitimate. Boli lachruze ale. Miyad. They were going to announce immediately, right then, on the spot, that David is illegitimate, and forget about being king. He's not even a proper Jew because he comes from Rus. I'm not sure if the word miyad goes with before or after. Let's read it again. Miyad, immediately. The pasuk then says, this is a pasuk somewhere else. That we also learned later on in Shmuel Beis. Pasuk talks about the Amasa. Just it's not relevant now who Amasa is, but he was the general of Avshalom, who eventually became the general of David. What's relevant is the pasuk says Amasa ben Ish. Amasa was the son of a man Ushmo Yisra HaYisraeli. Amasa came from a man named Yisra Yisraeli. Asher ba el Avigail bas Nachash. Okay, what that means is this fellow, Yisra, married a woman named Avigail, the daughter of Nachash. Nachash is a reference to Yishai. So that means that Yisra is the son-in-law of Yishai, and he's called Yisra HaYisraeli. Uksiv, but there's another pasuk that says Yaser HaYishmaeli. The parallel pasuk in Divrei Hayamim and Shmuel Beis identify him differently. One place he's called Yisra the Jew. The other place he's called Yaser the Yishmaeli. And the Gemara understands that it's the same person, even though one of them has an aleph and the other one doesn't. Why is he called a Jew and a Yishmaeli in Arab at the same time? Amar Rava. Rava says, Malame, this teaches us, Shechagar Charbo Ki Yishmael. This is one of my favorite lines in all of Gemara. this fellow Amasa took up a sword in his hand, like an Arab. Apparently, Arabs back in the time of the Gemara were sword-wielding people as well. That's just a parenthesis. It says in the Torah that Yishmael shot a bow and arrow. Doesn't say anywhere that he used a sword. Close parentheses. I don't know what to do about that. Va'amar, and he said, so this Jew got up and he said, Kol mi she'ena shomea halacha zu. Anyone who doesn't listen to this halacha that I'm getting ready to teach, yidaker becherev. He should be pierced by the sword. Kach mikublani mi beis dino shel Shmuel haramosi. I have a tradition from the Beis Din of Shmuel. Amoni velo amonis, Moavi velo Moavis. I have a tradition that only the men are forbidden from Moab and not the women. End of argument. Okay, this is an awesome way to end an argument. You just take out a sword and you say, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to chop off your head. Okay? Now, that is beyond the pale. When we learn Gemara, I know we sort of like get involved and sometimes we'll go at it, but like taking out a sword is never appropriate. And what in the world is the Gemara saying over here? This is the Gemara, just from beginning to end, is so remarkable. Realize this is 3 generations after Boaz married Rus. 3 generations. Boaz was the Gadol Hador. Yishai was the Gadol Hador in his generation. And now 3 generations later, Doeg HaDomi is coming along and challenging and saying that maybe David's not legitimate. And the Gemara responds, but we'll take out a sword and we'll prove it. And what's the business that the Gemara says? I received it as a tradition from Shmuel Hanavi, Shmuel Haramasi. That's the name of Shmuel Hanavi. I have a tradition from Shmuel. If you had a tradition from Shmuel, why didn't you mention it before? Why are you mentioning that there's a tradition? This Gemara is astounding. So at this point over here, we have a bunch of questions. Any one of you have any questions before I move on with the next part? We'll try to answer all these questions in a moment. Oh, yes, Yaakov Simcha.
2 questions.
Yes, number 2.
Yeah. Is Doeg forgetting about the rest of David's family? Like anyone who's still alive who came from Boaz and Rus, shouldn't they also be in this conversation?
Yeah, they should also be disqualified too, but Doeg's just Doeg is just responding to Shaul. Shaul saying, hey, this guy's awesome. He's like king worthy. And Doeg's just saying, okay, I don't care about the rest of the family. I just care about what you're saying right now.
And also, why is Amasa running around carrying the tradition of someone who's still who's still alive and still the Navi? Like, why isn't Shmuel the one doing this?
Right. So Amasa is not the one saying it. It's actually Yisraeli, his father. It's Amasa's father who's saying this. Now, this is important as just, it's not relevant to our discussion, but Yisraeli married Yishai's daughter. Yisraeli is David's brother-in-law. So this is relevant for him also.
So he's like saving his own butt.
Right, he is saving his own thing. And if you look at the top Tosfos over here, he touches on that subject, not relevant for us. Okay, says the Brisker Rav, I'm going to teach you a Rambam, and this Rambam is the foundation that will answer all of this up. So it's getting a little bit late, so I'm just going to sort of skim through the Rambam. I'm sort of going to summarize it. This Rambam is in Hilchos Mamrim, Perek Aleph. And the Rambam says the following, and this is very valuable information to know. How does Torah Shabbal Peh work? How do we learn out halachos? So we know we've got Torah Shebichsav, we have the written Torah, and then we have the oral Torah. How do you learn out a halacha and oral Torah? So there are 2 ways to know a halacha. One way of knowing a halacha is that it's a tradition passed down. That Hashem taught Moshe on Har Sinai this halacha. For example, the shape of tefillin. the shape of tefillin, that tefillin have to be square. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Torah. There's no hint to it anywhere in the Torah, but that's called a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. That's a word for something that we have no written source for it at all. It's just a tradition passed down, and there are dozens and dozens of those. The more common way of getting a halacha is making a drasha. We use the Yud Gimel Midos Torah Nidreshes Bayan, 13 principles. We say them at the end of, right before Baruch Shabbat, right before Mizmor Shir in davening in the morning, in some shuls. 13 principles. That's the second way of knowing. And those are darshaning the Torah. They're telling you how to darshan the Torah. Says the Rambam, if you ignore any one of those two things, and he also talks about a third thing called takana derabanan, where the rabbis make up something, they tell you we're making something up. If you ignore any one of those things, you're over below sase, you transgress a negative commandment. You're obligated to listen to these things. Says the Rambam, all of these things, we're obligated to follow them. Now, what's the difference between them? What's the difference between them? So says the Rambam in Halacha Gimel, Divrei Kabbalah ein bahem machlokes la'olam. When he says Kabbalah here, he doesn't mean mysticism. The word Kabbalah means something which has been received. So the Rambam is saying that if there's a tradition passed down from Hashem to Moshe all the way down, there's no argument or dispute about that. You can't argue and say, but I don't understand it, but what about this? What about that? No discussion. It's a tradition, and that's it. However, udvarim shalom medim min hadin, things which are learned from din means from these principles of analysis, then it goes after majority. Im iskimu alein beis din agadol kulana rei hiskimu. If the majority of the Beis Din Agadol in Yerushalayim accepts it and agrees to it, then it's good. That's if everyone agrees. If there's an argument, Holchin Achar Harov, we go after the majority. Umotziin Adin Achar Harabim, you go after the majority. As we know, in the Gemara, there's arguments all the time. How to darshan like this? How do you darshan like that? You go after the majority. Okay. Says the Rambam later on. Now, what happens if a future generation disagrees with the previous generation? Says the Rambam, if it's Kabbalah, if it's halacha l'Moshe miSinai, a future generation cannot argue. There's no debating it. It's finished. However, says the Rambam in the beginning of Perek Beis of Mamrim, Beis Din Gadol shedarshu ba'achas min amidos. The great Beis Din in Yerushalayim that darshans using one of these rules, kefi ma shenira be'eineim, according to what they think, shadin kach, that this is the halacha, the danu din, and they made a judgment, and that's what the judgment was. The amar achareim Beis Din acher, and a later Beis Din comes up. The Nira Lotam Acher Listor Oso, and they have reason to argue with the previous Beis Din, with some caveats that the Rambam speaks out elsewhere later on. They have to be a greater Beis Din than the previous one, but if they are, Hareze Soiser Vidon Kefima Shenira Be'enav. They can contradict and undo what was decided by the previous Beis Din. That's a radical idea. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, "Ela shofet asher yia bayamim ahem." You're supposed to go to the judge that's in your days. Ein chachai v'alechas ela acher Beis Din shebedarecha. You're only obligated to listen to. You're supposed to listen to the Beis Din in your own generation. Says the Brisker of. This is what was going on in the argument between Boaz and Ploni Almoni, and this is what was going on in the argument between Doeg Ka'adomi and Yisra Yishmaeli. At first, they thought that this was a halacha that was learned out from the Yud Gimel Midos Shatara Nidreshes by it, from the 13 principles. Amoni v'lo amonis, Moavi v'lo Moavis. And that's what Boaz said. This is a halacha learned out from the 13 principles. Says Ploni Almoni. That's all fine and dandy right now. And maybe I'm supposed to listen to you. And it's appropriate for me to marry Rus right now. But what about if in the future another Beis Din comes along and they change the halacha? And they could change the halacha. If they are greater than this current Beis Din, if they are greater, they could change the halacha. Now, that's not going to make it that I did an Aveira, Ploni Almoni. I didn't do anything wrong. I listened to my Beis Din. But that will cause my children to be disqualified. My children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be disqualified. I don't want to do that. That's what Ploni Almoni meant when he said, remember we asked, why he didn't say, I'm afraid I'm going to ruin my children. He said, I didn't say I'm afraid I'm going to do the wrong thing. He said, I'm afraid I'm going to ruin my children because he's afraid of this possibility. Boaz can't just tell him, but the halacha is Amoni v'lo Amonis. He knew that. Ploni Almoni knew what the halacha is now. He just didn't know what the halacha will be later on. I see there's some questions I'll get you in just a second. Oh, and that's exactly what's going on in the Gemara in Yevamos as well. They Avner said, we have halacha, Amoni v'lo Amonis. Doeg asked questions. Doeg is saying, wait a second, I don't get this drasha. This drasha doesn't make sense. I disagree with the drasha. Comes along, Yisra Yishmaeli, he pulls out his sword and he says, Kach mikublani mi beis dino shel Shmuel haramasi. You guys are making a mistake. This is not a drasha. This is a tradition. You can't argue with it. I have this tradition from Shmuel Hanavi. There's no room to argue about it. That's the end of the discussion. He pulls out a sword. Why does he pull out a sword? Because he's saying this is a show-stopping argument. Normally you can discuss this, that, the other. No, not anymore. This is a tradition that we have, and you can't argue with it at all. This is the idea that the Brisker Rav says to answer this. And with this, we can answer several other questions, but first, let me take any of your questions that you have right now. I saw some hands go up before, but I don't see them. Tzvi with a Z.
First of all, like when you're saying that you are, just by saying that you are a greater Beis Din than the Beis Din 2 or 3 generations before you shows, I think, some chutzpah and that you're not.
Right. You can't say it. It has to be that it's agreed and known. We have a general concept that the generations get lower as time goes on, and this is a rare occurrence that you would have a Beis Din that is greater. We'll never have a Beis Din that's greater than any generation before. But if you're within a couple of generations and you would have a really great person on your Beis Din, then it is possible back then that it could happen.
Also, didn't we have with Akavia, I think, in Malala, I think that was him, that he told his son that he should go with other people, even though it was in Pirkei Avos a few weeks ago, where he said that his son should go like this Beis Din because he had heard it from the Beis Din before, but now that it was the next Beis Din that his son should go with him.
I don't remember precisely what you're referring to, but if it's in something that's involving Maseches Eidos, so you've got different tests.
It's in Pirkei Avos.
Right. That exact line there's a reference to that maybe there. Like, I'm not exactly familiar with what you're referring to. Okay. Yeah.
Also, if he accepted it from Shmuel, that's not really a Kabbalah.
Here it is.
No, because right, but he said, but then Avner's saying he has a Kabbalah that from Boaz. That's just
no. Avner's saying he heard a drasha from Boaz. Ishmaeli is saying, I have a tradition from Shmuel that's not a drasha. From Shmuel, what the Brisker Rav is saying is that Shmuel had it as a tradition coming down, not as a drasha. Oh, now here's the coolest thing of all. Listen to this. Why do we read Rus on Shavuos? Before we get there, why was the book of Rus written? The Medrash actually asks this question. The book of Rus, why was it written? More than why was it written? Why is it its own book? The book of Rus should be in Shoftim. Sefer Shoftim has a whole series of different events about different Shoftim, right? It should be in Shoftim. Why is it written? Why was the book of Rus written? Says the Bach. Tzvi, you wanted to learn a Bach? Here's a Bach. The Bach wrote a sefer called Meshiv Nefesh, a commentary on the book of Rus. And in his introduction, he says, you know what the book of Rus is? The book of Rus was a letter written by Shmuel HaNavi to answer this question. Because the book of Rus ends with the yichus of David HaMelech. If you look at the last five or six psukim of Megillas Rus, it starts with Yehuda and it goes all the way down to David HaMelech. Shmuel wrote the book of Rus to answer this question. Is David legitimate? The answer is yes. And I'm going to send you this entire book to show you that yes, he is legitimate. That's what the Bach writes. That's the whole point of the book of Rus. That means that's the whole back and forth of the Sefer is to convey that. I believe, now, there are a lot of reasons why we read the book of Rus on Shavuos, right? It's David HaMelech's yard site. David HaMelech was born. They say if David HaMelech died on Shavuos, he also was born on Shavuos. And another reason is Rus happens in the time of the harvest season, and Rus was a convert. I think based on this Brisker Rav, there's another reason why we read Rus. See, Shavuos is the Yom Tiv of Torah Shabbal Peh. It's the Yom Tiv of accepting the Torah. The whole kashrus of David HaMelech as the great-grandfather of Mashiach is dependent on the Torah Shabbal Peh. Like, if they would have made a mistake, imagine if Doeg HaAdomi would have won that battle, right? If Doeg HaAdomi would have defeated Avner in that battle right then, if Yisra Yishmaeli had not stood up and said what he said, if Shmuel had not written this answer, we lost Mashiach. Mashiach comes from David HaMelech. We lost it. The whole Mashiach is dependent on the Torah Shabbal Peh, on correct interpretation of Torah Shabbal Peh. We wanted to have a Beis HaMikdash, very good. So I believe that based on this Brisker, that's another reason perhaps why we read the Megillas Rus on Shavuos. Okay, that is that shtickle. I have one additional cool story to share with you, but if you have any other questions, I'll take your questions first. Any questions? All right, I have a spectacular story to share with you, which I believe ties into this a little bit as well. I was listening to a shiur on Sunday morning online from Rabbi Shragi Kalis. Shragi Kalis is a Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael. He gives a lot of shiurim on Torah Anytime. This shiur was not on Torah Anytime, but he says the following, and this is in honor of my mother. Anyone who's named Shraga, I'm a big fan of, so that's why I like Shraga Kalis. My mother, when we named Shraga, our son Shraga, she was a little bit appalled by that. Listen to this story. Shragi Kalis says he was driving home on Motzi Shabbos. I don't know where he was, but he was driving home in Eretz Yisrael on Motzi Shabbos at about midnight. He's driving home, and the car in front of him short stops. He short stops, almost slams into the car in front of him, but didn't. And the car in front of him is just stopped in the middle of the road. Okay, what's going on? He says he got out of the car, he walked around, and he sees that the car in front of him had smashed into a 9-year-old kid. There was a 9-year-old kid, apparently, that was walking by himself in the middle of the street, and the car in front of him had hit the 9-year-old kid. The kid's lying on the ground. Okay, so they helped the kid up. Apparently he wasn't moving too fast. The kid got up and the kid seems like he's doing okay. All right, continue. So then a shocking thing happened. The guy who was driving the car that hit the kid, once he saw that the kid got up and walked away fine, they just drove off. Well, Rabbi Shragi Kalas thought that was a little bit of an irresponsible thing. And he said, I'm not just leaving this kid here. He's a 9-year-old kid who's got hit by a car in the middle of the night. Like, I got to take care of him. So despite the fact that we're in the middle of coronavirus, he put the kid in his car and he starts driving the kid home. He asks the kid, what's your name? Where do you live? The kid responds. And then all of a sudden the kid stops saying anything. Like, no response. Shragi's trying to have a conversation with him. No response. What's going on? He looks over. The kid has some blood dripping down from his ear. At which point, Shagi realized apparently this kid is not so good. He made a U-turn and went driving off at breakneck speed to Shari Chesed Hospital, which he said normally takes 20 minutes to get there, and he got there in 5 minutes. Okay, he pulls up over there and goes running up to the emergency room, and he says, I got this kid that was hit, a terrible thing. Come take him out, check him out, and they start working on this kid. Okay, the kid is checked into the hospital. Shragi Kalas calls the parents up, who are probably worried sick, calls them up and tells them what's going on. And he says, it looks like their kid is doing okay. The parents say, we don't have a car. Shragi Kalas goes and picks up the parents and drives them to the hospital. Baruch Hashem, by about 1:30, the kid is stable, everything is okay, and he comes back home, and that's it. Okay, an hour and a half invested. Rabbi Kalas then said like this. He said, you think I'm a pretty big hero for doing all that, right? I'm a pretty good guy, right? Says Rabbi Shragi Kalas, every single word that I just told you is a lie. I made up that whole story. By the way, when I told this to my wife, she was so excited. Baruch Hashem, there was no kid that got hurt. The whole story I just told you is a lie. Except for the part that I was driving home at midnight. There was no kid. No trip to the hospital, no concussion. Every single part of it was a lie. But you were impressed with me, weren't you? Then he said like this. He said, you know what I did do though? I got home at midnight. He had been busy throughout the day with whatever he had been doing on Shabbos. And he says, I have a set amount of learning that I do every day. And I had not finished what I needed to accomplish in my learning. So he says, you know what I did? I sat down when I got home at midnight and I was really exhausted, but I had an hour and a half of learning that I needed to do. And I learned until 1:30 in the morning and I finished the set amount that I needed to do. And then I went to sleep, despite the fact that it was really, really hard for me to do all that learning. So says Rabbi Shragi Kalas, are you as impressed with me now as you were before? He says, you should be, because it is a wonderful thing to save a child's life, but the learning that a person does keeps the world going as well. Now, if you have an opportunity to save somebody's life and you're busy learning, stop learning and save the person's life. That's the halacha. It's called the mitzvah overis, a mitzvah that can't be done by anybody else. That's your obligation. But when you sit down and you learn Torah, you're keeping the world going. And it's the same level. Mamish, the same level, says Rabbi Kalas. I wouldn't say this, he says this. Same level as saving somebody's life. So when we're sitting and we're learning Torah, and Ariel is providing this great opportunity for Atlanta to learn Torah, and you boys are sitting at home when there's so many other things to do, there's so many other distractions that you could have, and you take your time, however, to learn Torah, and especially as we come closer to Shavuos, we have to know that's what's keeping the world going. And never sell yourself short. Never say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to bother. It's too hard. I'm not going to mess with it. No, you sit down and you learn it and you go over it again and you go over it again and you get it. You're mamish saving the world. If you had a kid next to you that was that needed attention, life-saving attention, and it started to get a little bit difficult, like you were having trouble with it, would you drop it? No, you would keep at it until you were successful. So learning is the same thing. And Yasher Koach to all of you for coming to learn today. This was a tremendous pleasure. Yasher Koach, Rabbi Friedman, for this opportunity. And thank you very much to the Karshes for sponsoring this. And thank you, everyone. Yesher Koach.
Hey, thank you, Rabbi Alterman. And hang on just a minute before you run away. First of all,
Thank you,
no
Rabbi.
longer a co-host. And I'm also going to take the screen back from you.
It's yours, Rabbi.
Thank you. But I want to, first of all, I want to thank all the boys that just participated in hearing that wonderful shir. I want to thank Rabbi Alterman for that wonderful shir. I missed a little bit of it, but we have recorded all this, so I'm going to hear that again. I think it's fantastic. Rabbi Alterman is sharing with these boys in 7th grade a brisker Rav to explain the background and understanding of Ruth's and all the complexities that are involved in that. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's unbelievable what these boys are doing. And I am so happy that we had an opportunity to let other people in the community see it. And it's been recorded. So Emir Hashem, we're going to have this up. I don't know exactly. I'm not running the technical side of this operation. I'm just programming. But Emir Hashem, all of these classes are being recorded. And hopefully we're going to put them all out. We're going to make them available to the world. And I think that what you guys just did and what you accomplished right now is just beautiful. And I want everyone to see it. So we're going to do what we can to get that out there. So Yasher Koach to Rabbi Alterman, and Yasher Koach to all of you who participated. And I think that everyone here, especially all you guys who are in 7th grade, now I want you to all go into your mother's purse and take out her credit card and go over to the Ariel website. Okay, don't do that. Don't do that. But at the end of every session, we thank all the presenters. I want to thank Rabbi Alterman, who really giving us a special nachas of not only seeing him teaching the boys, but having been here from Congregation Ariel. And we have back-to-back nachas calls going on right now.